You know, some silences actually scream, not the kind that come from the outside, but the kind that come from deep inside. That emptiness you can't see, but you can feel it slowly taking over. You keep praying, you keep fasting, you keep acting like everything's fine, but deep down, something feels switched off. There's this invisible weight on your soul. And no, it's not just stress or tiredness, it's deeper. Like your inner light is fading and you don't even know why. You wake up tired even after sleeping. You open the Quran, but the words just slip away. You call on Allah, but your heart feels disconnected. And that feeling that your efforts don't even reach the sky anymore? You tell yourself it's just a phase, just a dry season. But what if it's not? What if something is stealing from you quietly in the shadows while you don't even notice? There are things we treat as harmless, but they're actually traps, silent habits, secret habits that slowly eat away at you. Masturbation is one of them. It's not just some physical slip or little mistake. It's a drain, a doorway, a crack, and through that crack, Shaytān enters, not to destroy you all at once, but to wear you down drop by drop. He doesn't want your big dramatic fall. He wants you to keep living, keep praying, keep talking about Allah, while your heart quietly switches off. That's his strategy. He doesn't go after your body. He goes after your core, the very link that connects you to Allah. He doesn't rip your faith away. He pulls you away from it slowly, until you don't even recognize yourself anymore. And one day, you look back and remember when you used to cry in prayer, when you used to feel Allah's presence in your daily life, and you ask yourself, what changed? And the truth is, it wasn't Allah. What changed was the state of your heart, and that didn't happen overnight. It happened through hidden habits, secret slips you never really repented from, actions you kept excusing because everybody does it. But there's a price you pay without even realizing it, and that price is your light, your strength, your connection to the one who created you. This isn't about shaming you. It's not about pointing fingers. This is a warning, a wake-up call, a light turning on in the tunnel. Because the truth is, millions of people are walking towards the extinction of their own light without ever realizing what they're truly losing. You probably think this act has no effect on your destiny. You tell yourself it's just a moment of weakness, that it only affects you. But what Shaytān knows, and what you don't see yet, is that every time you give in, it's not your body that's hit. It's your destiny that shifts. Your energy, your discipline, your clarity, your peace, your blessings. Everything that once made you a strong believer starts leaking out through that crack. So why talk about it? Why now? Because maybe this is the last time your ears will still hear this message. Maybe next time your heart will be too numb to react. Maybe that heaviness inside will start to feel normal. And that is the greatest danger, getting used to living without light. But here's the truth Shaytān is desperate to hide from you. What you lost can be reclaimed. What was stolen can be taken back, if you know where to look and if you have the courage to face what slipped away. This video isn't what will change your life. My voice won't heal your soul, but sometimes all it takes is one reminder, one shock, one moment of clarity, and maybe that moment is now. Maybe this is the starting point of your return, not a shallow reaction, not a wave of guilt that fades tomorrow, but a real awakening, a deep realization. You're not here by accident. Somewhere inside you, there's still a spark, a part of you that refuses to let this emptiness become permanent, a part of you that remembers peace, that remembers the light, that remembers the connection with the Most High, that part of you, listen to it, because it's whispering the very thing Shaytān has tried to silence for so long. You can come back, you can rise again, and you can take back what was stolen. But to do that, you have to open your eyes. You have to look in the mirror, not the mirror of the world, but the mirror of your heart. You might be closer to the breaking point than you realize. And if this message reached you today, it's not a coincidence. It could be your last warning, or your very first step back into the light. You know that strange kind of fatigue, the one no sleep can fix. You can sleep 8 hours on the softest bed and still wake up emptier than before. That weariness doesn't touch your body, it touches your soul. It creeps in quietly until it feels normal. You live with it, you move with it, and you forget how life felt before your light started to fade. That light, you didn't buy it, you didn't inherit it. It was a trust, a gift from Allah, a spark of the Spirit that no one could take from you unless you opened the door. And you did, through a habit you thought was harmless, a simple act that created a crack. And through that crack, something unseen began to drain you, little by little, silently, until prayer stopped giving you peace, until the call to Fajr no longer stirred your heart, until faith turned into routine and dua into empty whispers. This theft isn't sudden. You don't wake up one day and say, I don't feel Allah anymore. Number. It's slower, more subtle, like a lamp being dimmed one turn at a time. First you lose the drive, then the sincerity, then the consistency. And one day you're still doing the actions, but without a soul. Your heart beats, but it's disconnected. You're not completely lost, but you're no longer guided. You're floating, in between. Masturbation, when it becomes a hidden habit, is a bottomless pit. It doesn't just drain your body, it drains your soul. You give a piece of yourself to a passing impulse, and in exchange, you lose something eternal. Shaytān doesn't just make you fall, he robs you of what's most precious, your spiritual energy, and most of the time, you let him, without even realizing. The tragedy is that you think you can handle it. You convince yourself it's just a weakness you'll manage next time. But each time you give in, you weaken the unseen structure of your soul. You make it fragile, vulnerable. And the weaker it gets, the more other shadows creep in. Anger, jealousy, arrogance, impatience, the urge to run from anything that elevates you. Your heart turns into dry soil, incapable of receiving the rain. And you know that moment right after, that heavy calm, that inner discomfort, that strange sense that something inside you just sank. That's your light flickering. That's your connection weakening. And the real pain isn't the act itself, it's what it steals, what it erases, what it stains. In the spiritual tradition, they say the soul is a vessel. It can be filled with light or with darkness, but never both at the same time. Every time you let this kind of sin in, you push a little bit of that light out. You make room for something else. And the more that something takes root, the further the light drifts away. Maybe you want to get back to the fire you once had. Maybe you want to feel those tears again in sujood. Maybe you miss that shiver that ran through you when you heard the name of Allah. But how can light return if you keep feeding the shadow? How can you feel the presence of the divine if you keep opening the door to what pulls you away? And listen, this isn't a life sentence. You're not doomed to stay this way, but you have to admit something. That inner fatigue you feel, it's not random. It's a signal, a warning. Allah isn't punishing you, He's calling you. That emptiness isn't meaningless. It's the direct result of a spiritual imbalance. It's your soul screaming in silence, begging to be saved. You can't build a strong spiritual life on cracked foundations. And when masturbation becomes a repeated habit, that's exactly what it does. It weakens the base. It stops you from rising, not because Allah rejects you, but because you're cutting the rope yourself. You're loosening the bond, making it unstable. But here's the good news. If light can be stolen, it can also be restored, and it comes back faster than you think. One prayer, done with all your heart, can relight a spark. One sincere repentance can seal a crack. But it requires honesty. No more minimizing, no more excuses. You have to face yourself and say, yes, I've been emptied, but I want to be filled again, not with this world, with Allah. You want to feel alive? Then it's not your physical heart you need to stimulate. It's your spiritual heart you need to revive. And it begins with one decision. Close that door. Take back control. Turn off the screen, raise your hands and say, Ya Rab, I gave myself to what distanced me from you. Now I want to come back. Because the energy you lost, it isn't dead. It's waiting for you, with the one who never sleeps. There's a kind of darkness that doesn't come from the night. It creeps into the mind silently until you're no longer able to think clearly. You try to focus, but your thoughts scatter. You open the Quran with a sincere intention to read, and a few verses later, your mind is somewhere else. You say Allahu Akbar in prayer, but your heart is in your phone, in a memory, in an imagined scene. You're no longer master of your own mind. This mental fog isn't just distraction. It's a symptom of something deeper. When masturbation becomes a hidden habit, it rewires your inner system. What you thought was just a passing pleasure is actually a direct attack on your clarity. It scrambles your spiritual frequency. It makes noise inside you. And the longer it stays, the harder it becomes to find the silence you need for real reflection. You wonder why it's harder to focus in prayer, why you can't contemplate a verse anymore, why your decisions feel shaky, blurred. The answer is simple. Your mind has been trained for distraction, for instant gratification, for quick images, for avoiding silence. And it often begins in those moments when you give in to your desires alone with a screen, thinking it's harmless. But Shaytān knows this very well. Every time you return to this habit, you hand control back to your nafs, and a mind ruled by its desires becomes cloudy. It loses its compass. It can no longer tell the urgent from the important, the sacred from the trivial, the truth from the noise. It's not just a loss of concentration, it's spiritual fog. In spiritual traditions, they say the intellect is the mirror that reflects divine guidance. But a dirty mirror reflects nothing clearly. And every time you fall back into that cycle of solitary pleasure, you stain that mirror. You leave smudges, cracks, scratches, until you no longer even know why you do what you do. You pray out of habit. You move without direction. You lose meaning. There's a terrible moment, one many feel but don't dare to name. It's when you no longer feel like learning. You don't care to understand a verse anymore. You don't feel the drive to seek the depth of a hadith. Nothing seems to reach you. That's what mental fog is. It doesn't empty the mind. It overloads it with distractions. You could read 100 books, memorize entire surahs, but if your heart is veiled by repeated acts you no longer fight, you'll lose access to true understanding. Because real knowledge, the kind that lights the heart, not just the intellect, descends only onto a calm spirit, and repeated masturbation destroys that calm. Maybe you felt it before, that sense of being cluttered, your mind filled with flashes, urges, random thoughts, endless scenarios. It's constant noise, a buzzing inside you that never stops. You wake up with it, live with it, sleep with it, and it drowns out what matters. Because Allah's voice doesn't scream, it whispers, and in the inner chaos, you miss His answers. You haven't lost your intelligence, you haven't lost your worth, but you've let your mind drift from its axis, and it's time to realign it. Because it's not normal to read a verse and lose focus instantly. It's not normal to fear silence. It's not normal to run away from being alone with yourself. Shaytān wants you addicted to noise, to images, to constant stimulation, because he knows that in silence you could reconnect. He knows that in calm you could hear Allah's call. So he works endlessly to keep you distracted. And you think your problem is concentration, when in reality your problem is purification. Taking back control of your mind isn't about some technique. It's about choice. As long as you keep feeding the chaos with acts that dim your light, you'll keep floating. But the moment you decide to break the cycle, to say no to that artificial pleasure, you'll feel your mind clear up. Your thoughts will align. Your memory will strengthen. Because by saying no to what darkens you, you say yes to what elevates you. And it won't be an overnight miracle. The light won't explode back into you in a single night. It's a rebuilding, a re-education. You'll have to relearn how to sit alone without a screen, how to read slowly, how to reflect deeply, how to listen to your own heart. But every step you take toward rebuilding that clarity is a step toward your essence, toward your axis, toward Allah. There's no fatal destiny in mental fog. There's only a choice: remain a prisoner of confusion, or walk, slowly if you must, toward the light. And the good news is that light is already waiting for you. It has never stopped calling you. There are moments in life when everything feels slowed down, when even the simplest things become complicated. You work hard, but the results don't show. You put in effort, but nothing seems to bear fruit. Money disappears without reason. Projects stagnate. Opportunities slip away. And what's most troubling is, you're not doing anything wrong on the surface. You pray, you fast, you go about your daily life, but everything feels heavy, as if an invisible hand is holding you back. That's the moment you need to pause and look inward, because what manifests in your outer life often reflects what's happening inside your heart. And among the treasures Shaytān tries hardest to steal is one of the most subtle yet most essential blessings: barakah. Barakah isn't just a spiritual concept, it's a divine energy. It's what makes small efforts produce great results, what turns a little into enough, what allows peace to settle even in chaos. It's that touch of divine light that Allah places in your actions, in your time, in your relationships, in your wealth, in your heart. And this light is drawn to purity, sincerity, inner alignment. But when a hidden act like masturbation becomes a repeated habit, tolerated, normalized, it creates a crack. And through that crack, barakah begins to leak. Not all at once, but slowly, day after day, until one day you look around and realize everything you do feels empty. You can be skilled, intelligent, well-connected, but without barakah, everything turns dull. You earn money, but it slips through your hands. You build things, but they don't last. You feel tired, even in moments that should bring joy, not because you're cursed, but because something in you has disconnected from the source of blessing. Masturbation, when it becomes a habit, disturbs that connection. It's not just a private act hidden in a corner of your life. It's a disruption of your relationship with the unseen. It brings shame, withdrawal, inner disorder, loss of self-control. And in that disorder, barakah quietly withdraws. not because Allah punishes you, but because your heart is no longer in the state to receive it. The scholars of spirituality describe barakah as a fragrance, a perfume released by pure souls, a fragrance the angels recognize and accompany. But when that purity is repeatedly stained deliberately, the fragrance fades. The blessings distance themselves, and even if you keep performing good actions, their impact diminishes. Because it's not just the action that attracts barakah, it's the sincerity behind it, the alignment of the heart, the cleanliness within. You can live in a spacious house surrounded by a loving family with an honorable job, but if barakah has left your life, everything becomes mechanical. The sweetness is gone, the peace is gone, the sense of grace is gone. You move forward, but it feels like dragging an empty cart, and that heaviness doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. It's a signal, a call, a silent alarm that something has been lost. And yet, the beauty of the divine lies in His mercy. What was stolen can be restored, often in an even purer form. Barakah isn't some unreachable reward. It's a gift that Allah places in the lives of those who seek purification. It returns the moment you open the door of sincerity, the moment you say enough to what drains your soul, the moment you place light back at the center of your priorities. Maybe you want success. Maybe you want your efforts to bear fruit, your work to prosper, your home to feel at peace. But that won't come through techniques or shortcuts. It will come by returning to the essential, by closing the hidden doors through which Shaytān has entered to weaken your destiny. And if you're honest with yourself, you already know exactly which door that is. The return of barakah begins with the cleansing of the heart, with the radical choice to say no to the act that weakens your bond with Allah. In that refusal, in that resistance, restoration begins. Once you decide to purify your inner space, you'll see your outer world start to shift as well. This isn't magic, it's alignment. When your heart becomes a place fit for light, the light returns, and with it comes everything you were missing: ease, peace, unexpected openings, the right people at the right time, projects that finally move forward. But it takes courage, the courage to break away from a habit that feels harmless, but is in reality a calculated strategy of Shaytān to strip you of your blessings. As long as that habit remains alive in the shadows, it will continue to drain your light. So ask yourself, is that moment of temporary pleasure worth the loss of an entire current of divine blessing in your life? Is a fleeting instant of solitude worth months of stagnation, failures, blockages? What you lose isn't always visible, but you feel it in your calm, in your creativity, in your serenity, and most of all, in your connection with Allah. What you once gave to Shaytān in weakness, you can take back in strength. What you allowed to fade, you can reignite with sincerity. Barakah returns wherever the heart is made pure, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop a broken heart from becoming a place of blessing once again. All it takes is the will to change, to make space, and the courage to shut the doors of darkness, so that light, gently, can return. There is a power you possess without even realizing it. It is not the strength of your arms, nor your intelligence, nor your influence. It is your ability to say no when everything inside you screams yes. This power is called discipline, and it is far from ordinary. It is the invisible foundation of every spiritual, mental, and even material elevation. When you lose it, everything else falls out of balance. And this is precisely why Shaytān attacks it with such subtlety, not through visible storms, but through quiet, insidious habits. One of the most destructive, repeated masturbation. What few people realize is that each time you give in to this urge, it's not just a carnal act you commit. It's a silent declaration. I cannot control myself. And this statement, you only tell yourself. You don't shout it. You don't even admit it. But your heart records it. Your mind assimilates it. Your soul suffers. The body knows what it is doing, but the soul knows what it loses. When this habit takes root, it does not stay confined to intimacy. It spills over into the rest of your life. First, you miss one prayer, then two. You tell yourself you're tired. You procrastinate. You delay commitments. You no longer feel the urgency to rise at dawn. And none of this comes from a lack of knowledge. You know what to do, but you no longer have the inner strength to do it. Discipline is not a set of strict rules. It is inner stability. It is the ability to remain aligned with what you believe, even when your desires try to pull you away. And when that stability is broken by acts that feed the nafs, you become like a rudderless ship, pushed by the winds, exhausted from fighting the waves, resigned to drift. You've probably felt it before. You want to do good, but you feel stuck. Every good action feels heavy. You know you should read, learn, pray, work on yourself, but the spark is gone. That sacred fire that once pushed you forward has weakened. Not because Allah has turned away, but because you allowed your nafs to chain you. And most often it's through the very act you thought was harmless. Masturbation, seemingly innocuous, becomes in repetition a slow poison to the will. You tell yourself you will stop. You promise it's the last time. You make du'as. You even feel tears of regret. But the next day, you do it again. And with each relapse, you steal a little more of your credibility in your own eyes. You begin to doubt your own sincerity, to believe you will never succeed. And that is exactly what Shaytān wants. He wants you to think you are condemned, that you have no ability to change. But this lie is powerful precisely because it seeps in slowly. And it has a profound impact. It steals your honor. That sense of inner dignity, that pride in being strong in the face of your weaknesses, evaporates. You pretend to be okay. You smile. You apologize. But you know you are losing a silent war. And yet, the truth is that this war can be turned around. Because discipline never disappears completely. It merely sleeps, waiting to be awakened. And this awakening does not come from a miracle. It comes from a decision, from a refusal, from a moment when you say no, not because you are strong, but because you are tired of being weak. What we often forget is that every small victory counts. Turning off the screen just before diving in, leaving the room when temptation rises, rising for ablution instead of remaining frozen. These gestures, however small, are spiritual swords, and every blow struck against your nafs weakens it. Every sincere no you say is a stone in the reconstruction of your dignity. The Prophet Muhammad said, "The strong person is not the one who overpowers others, but the one who controls himself when angry." And if you look closely, the impulse behind this act is a form of anger at oneself, impatience with solitude, a reaction to avoid. True strength is therefore to transform this energy into worship, to channel this fire rather than suffer it. And then you regain something extraordinary, self-respect. You begin to look at yourself with esteem again, not because you are perfect, but because you are standing, because you fight, because you refuse to be dominated by your impulses. And this resistance is itself an act of worship. It is an inner jihad, noble and honorable even if no one witnesses it. You will not always be strong. You may fall again. But every time you choose discipline, every time you rebuild your inner armor, you send a message to Shaytān. You have no power over me except what I give you. And today I take that power back. This struggle is not easy, but it is sacred. It is at the root of your elevation. For as long as you have not regained control of yourself, nothing solid can be built. But once you reclaim it, even timidly, even awkwardly, everything changes. Your prayers feel lighter. Your gaze becomes clearer. Your heart steadier. Because you no longer flee. You move forward. And every step in that direction is a victory that even the angels silently celebrate. There is a specific moment right after the act that almost no one dares to name. That brief silence where, despite physical satisfaction, a heaviness sets in. You turn off the screen, put down your phone, and a strange emptiness takes hold. Not an emptiness in the room, but in your chest, as if something has detached from you. You look around and everything seems normal, but inside, everything is dim. Peace has left. You didn't see it go, but you feel its absence. It is not just guilt. It is not just a fleeting discomfort. It is deeper. It is the feeling that you have drifted away from Allah, from yourself, from your light. You continue to live, but this connection, this invisible thread that linked you to the Most High, has weakened. And every time you fall again, it becomes thinner, less strong, until you almost no longer feel it. This sense of distance is what Shaytān covets most. He does not just want you to sin. He wants you to believe you cannot return. He wants to wrap you in the illusion that you have become unworthy, too dirty, too weak for God to look upon you. And eventually, you begin to believe it. You start avoiding prayer, delaying ablution, not speaking sincerely to your Lord, not because you no longer believe, but because you think He no longer wants to listen. And this is precisely where the lie is most dangerous, because Allah has never stopped listening. It is you who stopped calling with your heart. You convinced yourself through repeated failure that your sins had outweighed His mercy. But you forget one essential thing. Allah is not like humans. He does not love you only when you succeed. He waits for you most when you fail. That inner peace you lost was not merely the result of a good routine or environment. It was the direct consequence of a living, vibrant connection with your Creator. And that connection, even damaged, even neglected, is never completely broken as long as you continue to breathe. One sincere return is enough to weave it back together. One prostration in the quiet of the night, one sigh that becomes a supplication. You may have lived for years in the shadows. You may have built walls of shame around yourself. You may have hidden your pain behind smiles and excuses. But your heart knows. It remembers. It remembers what it was like to feel close to Allah, to feel that gentle peace even through trials, that silent light that gave meaning to everything, and it still calls for it, even in chaos, even in falling. Every time you fall back into this habit, it is not just your body that stirs. It is your heart that dims a little more. You feel your invocations becoming mechanical, your prayers lacking depth. You recite the words, but your soul does not taste them, not because you have changed, because you forgot to nurture the flame. Inner peace is not a luxury. It is a vital necessity. It is not granted to those who succeed in everything, but to those who dare to turn to Allah, even broken, especially broken. For it is in sincere tears that true tranquility is born. It is in true regret that presence returns. Shaytān wants you to give up. Allah wants you to return. And you do not need to be perfect to return. You only need to be genuine. Dare to speak to Allah without filters. Tell him what you dare not tell anyone else. Tell him your shame, your pain, your struggles. Tell him you want to return even if you don't know how, even if you fall again. Because peace does not come from perfection. It comes from sincerity, from the deep will to no longer live disconnected. You can rebuild this connection. It is never too late. Even if you have fallen 100 times, even if you have been distant for years, the door is always open. And sometimes, one single sincere act is enough to reopen a flood of mercy. One prostration where you truly surrender. One night where you speak to God as you would to a confidant. And something inside you begins to live again. You will feel this peace return, first softly, then more deeply. It will not be loud. It will not make you cry out in joy, but it will calm you. You will sleep better. You will smile with your heart. You will feel safe even in the unknown, because you will know you are no longer alone. You never were alone. You just extinguished your light. Now you are relighting it. And if you read these words or hear this message, it is because this moment is calling you. It is no coincidence. It is an opportunity to take up the thread, to repair, to be reborn. What Shaytān stole can be reclaimed. And even better, Allah can replace it with something infinitely more beautiful. So today, make a choice. Not a grand speech, not a revolution, just a step, a gesture, a true word. Reconnect. Open your heart and say, even silently, Ya Allah, I need you. And from there, watch how life slowly begins to realign around your regained light. If this series of truths has awakened something in you, do not let this moment pass. Do not return to silence as if nothing was said. Take this reminder as proof that Allah has seen you, that He speaks to you through this message, and that He calls you to return to Him now. So comment, share what you feel, write what your heart whispers. For sometimes one sincere word can be the first brick of a deep reconstruction. And above all, do not leave without subscribing, because every reminder you receive could be another key toward your regained peace, whether today or tomorrow. But above all, do not delay. Return to the one who has never abandoned you.